What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a Ko-Fi, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Neil, Refracted Curvature, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
This is pathetic.
Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
What's up, Neil? What's pathetic?
I don't want to be pathetic.
What's up? What's wrong?
Only me and Refracted on the G Plus panel? Pathetic.
Doesn't matter. There's just me and the G Plus panel. It would just serve as playing my role of whatever you want to call them, captions like this picture on screen now. It just offers me that facility and an ability for people who I know to join at the drop of a hat. So if I started the show with just me and Discord, that wouldn't be any problem. I've got 2 panels, haven't I? And now, as a result of, I don't know, demand, we've now got several Discord servers that we can join. So if I happen to join this one and there was just nothing going on, I know of at least 2 other servers that I could just drop into and, you know, involve myself in the conversation, and their reception would be relatively warm. So it's never going to be a problem.
That's not my point. This used to be a spot of prestige. Now, I think we're the peanut gallery.
You just feel outnumbered, do you?
Neil, well, Neil, there's a thing where you can only talk about a concluded point for so long before you have to do other stuff. I don't think anyone's not coming intentionally.
Yeah, there's always something that people want to tell an audience about, and retaining an audience, keeping their interest, that's obviously my job, but keeping the door open to people who I know. So as we were talking about him in the pre-show, right, if Tinfoil Hat Man came today and was like, I've got these images and I really want to share them with the world, so to speak, well, not even so to speak, then he's got a means of joining, I don't want to call it the main panel, but the main bit that's being shown to the audience. It takes up the most screen real estate, and present his stuff there and then with him having controls that I know he's got easy use of and things like that, right? So someone can drop in at a pinch when they've got something that they do want to talk about. And beyond that, I can generally, even without the Discord server, I could do an hour, no worries. You know, the fact that it can stretch out and does tend to seem to require 3 hours a day of recording and discussion is a testament to the fact that if nobody was here, everyone deserted me for whatever reason, I could still easily do a live show without any assistance from anybody. You know, I've got loads to talk about Flat Earth all day long, every day till the day I die. So don't worry about it. Hello, Adam, by the way.
Afternoon, guys.
You're late.
So yesterday's
Sorry,
show
Neil.
on QE, I've got criticism, Adam.
Oh, go on, then.
Well, I joined sporadically. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I did periodically jump in and out of the stream while I was doing other things. And it seemed like, might not be the case, every time I joined, that's Ballbusters, if you will, were iterating how the globe claim works. Because Danny and whoever else, you know, the people you were covering in the video, weren't adhering to standard globe rhetoric. So it just seems like every time I tuned in, I'm hearing one of you guys tell me how the globe works. You go back and listen.
Robert, I think what we were addressing, got very frustrating addressing a point, and I just kept saying no. I would deal with this is a second law of thermodynamics violation. This is, unless you're talking about when we were talking about traversing the globe with the flight bit, me and Brian, and in which case you've kind of got to nuance the differences of flight and show that against what would be passing a ball. Not sure which
there you go.
about.
There's a good example. I did tune into that bit. I was just racking my brains. So there was a point in that particular discussion when second law of thermodynamics violation, which QE kept leaving off. It's in the second law of thermodynamics, he says. What you mean? You mean the sky vacuum, which violates the second law of thermodynamics? But he's so used to saying it that he's just. But anyway, I'm off on a non sequitur already. So you were talking about how people would boil in a vacuum, or what effects would take place in the vacuum, and how the sky vacuum would behave. And it's hard to explain how it just sounded to me as a sporadic listener, as opposed to somebody who's glued to the whole show. Every time I tuned in, it sounded like I was having the globe explained by Ballbusters. That's just how it seemed.
So I think you need to hear the preface before, middle, and end of those, which is frustration of me going. But actually, I'm not going there. I'm only just going to point out why do I need to do this, because it's a second law of thermodynamics violation. But if I've got to talk about boiling, you know what I mean, in vacuums and that, then we were covering the points that he's making, showing his ignorance. It's a funny one. I get your point, and if you listen to me fully, you'll see that frustration in me, that I'm heading down this feast of nonsense road, which is why I'll pull it back to that. Or I could just, you know what I mean? That's agree. There's certain topics where you are, unfortunately, you're going to get into the weeds, aren't you? As you discuss it or as you disprove their viewpoint. The flight, particularly, because you've got to critique it traversing a globe. See, there's no other way of describing the problems you have, or the problems you would have if you were flying a plane over a sphere. You kind of have to get into their paradigm to show how it wouldn't work, if you see what I mean.
I know it's me lower down than the blade criticising the tip of the spear for understanding the intricacies, which can be later summarised to me to just hand wave. You know what I mean? I'm sure I know this is to Brian's frustration all the time, because I'll ignore it or even demean it because of my own ignorance and whatever. And then eventually, when I finally understand it, I'll go, right, so I can now summarise it back as I understand it within the globe paradigm, and Brian will agree. And then I'll go, well, it's pointless. I don't need to know this because... And at that point, I'm appealing to the audience, but essentially hand-waving all of the knowledge, which I later then have to disclaim. This will come in useful. If you don't know it, someone will offer a part of it to you as a defence, and you won't know how to overcome it. So you've got to be able to...
I don't know.
Right.
Hold on. You might have a problem with QE, though, because I remember just recently I said something to the effect of, yeah, we don't need to spend time debunking the globe anymore. We've moved on. And he came in and said, says you. So I don't know. I think there's a part of QE that likes that.
No. It's not that he likes it. It's that every time someone says the debate is over, oh, right, so the whole Western world now know it's measured flat, do they, Neil? No, the debate will continue. And to understand the intricacies of how the globe is alleged to work is something that you must understand if somebody who understands how it in their mind does work comes and presents it to you as a defence to you showing them how it's flat. Well, how can it be measured flat when in reality, and they refer to some aspect of heliocentrism that you've never even looked at? How are you going to overcome their position if you don't understand it? So it's all well and good knowing the conclusion as an audience member that just wants to listen to the show and get on with their day. So for this will be a slightly lengthened point. For those who say, well, what does it matter to me? Well, okay, let's flip that on its head. If it doesn't matter to you, you're of that mindset. Okay, let's say you do prove that it's flat to me. What difference does it make? Okay, let's just shout flat for a second. If I can get you to the stage in this show where you understand with one rendition how Earth is measured flat and an example that proves it to you, And then even perhaps in the show, somebody challenges that and you understand how their globe rebuttal does not overcome the facts of the measurements. What, at that point, if you're then saying, well, what does it matter? Now I know it's measured flat. How does this affect me? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you just get on with your life knowing that you're not going to change the world, and finding out where something you thought was true isn't now won't necessarily benefit you in your career or your payments of your car. Then fine. Then you've dipped into this show, took out the most valuable aspect of the information we have to offer. That's how the world really is. And then get on with your day. But if you're of the mindset that you then feel, no, there must be something wrong here, then that's a different path you're taking. You're rolling down the hill of anti-flat earthism, where you may brace against us, or you're rolling down the hill in delight because you're going to finally look into an aspect of the world that hasn't actually got an answer, and you might be the one to get it. Well, those are two different paths that you may take beyond the I don't care. And okay, now I know it's flat. I don't feel any different. Okay, great. You took the red pill. You woke up. You saw that everywhere's a shithole and the world wasn't real. Fine, but you still got your mortgage to pay, so you stroll straight back outside, get in the car park, get in your car, drive home, and start doing your receipts. Good for you, but so long as you understand it's measured flat at the beginning of that process, to not care about it. Because if you come away going, well, I understand how they say the globe doesn't work, well, then you've not achieved anything. You'll go away just going, I'm ignorant, rather than, oh, it's measured flat. Oh man, what a massive lie. Anyway, bills to pay. I'm done.
Right. Well, the main difference, sorry about the kids, the main difference is whether you're going to debate it with someone else who opposes the position. You can know the earth is flat without entering into debate. If you enter into debate, you need to know the points better than your opponent. But just to know the earth is flat, it is unnecessary.
Exactly. I tried to detail this yesterday with my daughter at an art lesson. The art lesson's about dripping paint down a page. That's the essence of the art lesson. Freeism or something like that. I've forgotten the name. I wasn't paying attention. Anyway, she does the lesson. She's explaining how gravity is going to affect the drips and asks my daughter directly, do you understand what gravity is? The answer from my daughter, yes, I do. Because she instantly recognised the context that this was going to be used in. And I assume, after talking to her afterwards, actually, I know, recognised that it wasn't a worthy point to start debating the point. The Western world understand when we use this shortened version of solids moving through air in a downward bias. Yeah, that's what she has to understand if she's going to understand that she can drip paint down the page. Rather than say, no, look, there's clouds up there, which she could have done. Her example to me in the car on the way home was, yeah, I kind of thought, what about balloons going up? And I was like, yeah, but I'm glad you didn't say it because it's not relevant to your art lesson. In other words, you get on with your day. You don't need to enter into this debate, do you? It's not going to benefit you. So, yeah, but if you are, just to get back onto John's point, if you are going to enter into debate, then you need to listen to every one of the last 2,500 shows so you know everything there is to know about this subject.
That would have been classic if your daughter would have went into a Nathan Oakley rant.
I've taught her not to do that. Well, no, I haven't really taught her not to do that. I've just taught her to respect other people's beliefs. And one of them that gets taught to her is heliocentrism. And she probably gets taught more complex heliocentric concepts than most children of her age. They're just being taught the basics. It's just being doctored into them and hammered into them with a globe on the desk in the classroom while they learn maths. You know, some of the advanced heliocentric concepts that she hears discussed and asks questions about, because she's obviously at the other side of a door right now. I'm talking about the older one. The younger one is obviously not that interested in any of this stuff. She's more interested in whether she's getting chocolate later. But you know what I mean? But for the older one, when she's engaging with the world that much more, I'm very proud when she doesn't engage in debate. And for the most part, I feel that the majority of the audience also shouldn't necessarily be engaging in debate unless they do feel like they genuinely understand every single aspect of the heliocentric claim, how you can overcome each aspect covered in housekeeping, and ultimately win by not just inferring, but telling the opponent how the world is actually dealt with. Now, if you can tick all those boxes, then yeah, enter into the next man's debate. But if somebody just starts telling you it's a sphere and you just nod along, there's no harm in that. You know, you don't have to enter into debate with next man just because he exercises his belief. You know, if a Muslim started telling you about his faith, you can just nod along. If a Christian starts telling you about their faith, you can just nod along.
I don't know about that.
You're confrontational, though, Neil. You want to set the world to rights.
No, that's not it. You said it depends on who you are. If a Muslim comes to you with their faith.
Well, if you're a Christian rhetoric and you're out there debating in the circuit, then yeah, there's a different set of standards for that man than your average Joe normally who happens to walk through a park where there's a Christian preacher banging a Bible and talking about Christianity. If that person happens to grab you by the arm and you go, whoa, 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 what are you doing? Have you heard about Jesus? Yes, I have. Thank you. I've actually got an appointment though. I'm really sorry. Have you heard about the great word of the sky vacuum and the men and the wonderful work that they're doing in space? I have, thank you. Yes, I've actually got an appointment with somebody. I'm really sorry. As opposed to, Earth's measured flat, mate. What are you babbling about?
Not talking about the guy in the park. Talking about just a worker, me as a worker, and a guy coming across and starts telling me about his Muslim faith. I'm gonna share. I'm not just gonna ignore it.
Okay, well, it's horses for courses, isn't it? Everybody's different, Neil. You're obviously that much more combative than I. In general...
It's not combative. As a Christian, it would be my duty to not keep just close my ears to it.
Okay, well, I wasn't talking in terms of the recommended daily dose of Christianity that you're supposed to give if somebody confronts you with their faith in whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about knowing how Earth is dealt with, measured, navigated, built on, and whether or not you choose to correct somebody who's got a different belief in what the world is. And in this country, the Western world belief, the general laid down standard, is heliocentrism. So, challenging them, I mean, it's up to you, but you just got to be on. The only point we're trying to make here, let's just get back to John's point.
I walked away.
Let's just get back to John's point.
You don't want to get into it.
Neil, let's just get back to John's point. You've got to be on the cutting edge if you're going to debate people about this. You need to know all the arguments. That's it. Just wanted to be the first on the super chat, says Jardo. Well, thank you very much. Give you a little heart for being first on the super chat. Thank you. Really appreciate the support. Duncan McLeod says, You're confrontational, Neil. No, I'm not.
That's a good one. No, but sometimes you just don't want to get into it. Like the other day, it was brought up, and I said, I'm not even going to start. Fine.
That is starting.
Hey, Neil, do you see it as your
inherent, intrinsic, independent? What?
Inclusive?
Incredulous? Come on, we were almost there with the whole word.
Sorry, I just muted myself. Neil, do you see your invaluable duty to promote Flat Earth just like you promote Christianity?
Are you a Flat Earth evangelist, Neil?
No, that's what I just said. The other day, it was brought up to me, and I just let it go because I didn't feel like getting into it. Because I sensed what it was going to become.
It's an interesting topic. It's almost along the lines of what we discussed in the pre-show, where we're like, should you offer nonsense answers just to relieve someone of their pain? Well, this is a slightly different scenario where someone isn't aware that what they're telling you is nonsense. Do you make them aware in that moment when it may not necessarily benefit you or them? It opens a gate that may eventually benefit them, maybe of a source of pain. You just don't know where that door will lead for that person in that moment. So it's an assessment that you have to make. And I don't know if there's any moral obligation. Neil tried to parallel it with the Christian moral obligation in the moment by comparison, and I'm not having that. I don't know if there's any moral obligation for me to tell anybody who is under the misapprehension they are standing on a sphere by way of a derivation of measurements of a flat Earth. To point that out or to not point that out, that is the question.
If it's a Christian now, hold on. If it's a Christian, then I'm gonna say something.
You've tried this once.
If they're
Yes,
gonna
you
come
tried this
to me
parallel.
with that,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I'm talking about heliocentrism.
Yes, that's what I was doing.
And a Christian, then I'm gonna say something.
Yeah, I tried to draw it away from that parallel, and you've now tried to bring it back onto it. But thank you.
Yeah,
No,
you spoke
misunderstanding me.
really well, Nathan.
Say again, Sydney.
I appreciate your statement there. It was, it was exactly the way I feel about it. Exactly. Yeah.
But it's a question.
Well done. That's all.
It's a question. Maybe answer it. Do you feel it is appropriate for you to tell all and sundry, or correct all and sundry when they assert something about heliocentrism? Is it your duty or moral obligation to do so, or do you feel no, absolutely
and
not?
It's kind of on a case by case basis, as you said. No, it's so individualized. Same with one's faith in their divine entity or whatever that may be, whether that's Christian or other. Yeah.
Hold on a second. You misunderstood everything I said. I got to defend myself.
Feel free.
That's not what I said. I'm not talking about debating Christianity. I said if a Christian is going to come to me speaking about heliocentrism, then I'm going to try to set them straight.
That seems very prejudicial. So you'd only feel morally obliged if they're of the same faith as you are?
No, because they're using the Bible and they're trying to tie it in with heliocentrism. That's when I got to correct their error.
Okay, fine, fair enough. But beyond that, for anybody who's not Christian, you put yourself in the scenario I gave. You're at an art class with your child, and the teacher starts talking about gravity.
That's so hard. I can't even imagine that.
I mean,
Right.
it wasn't particularly difficult because I already know that my daughter is aware of the social implications of challenging this sort of stuff because I've told her. So I didn't shift uncomfortably. I was intrigued to see what she'd do, completely uncoached or without any preemption or whatever the word is. So I was intrigued, but I wasn't worried.
Mm-hmm.
In that situation, though, you don't have to be a flat earther, do you? If somebody's bringing up gravity, there's no need for you can deal with the situation intellectually and academically correct in that without having to mention flat earth. In fact, flat earth's not really relevant when somebody brings up gravity. If you want to just challenge the position, do what we do, which is just to ask the person that's citing this as a causation which gravity they mean. Yeah, Newtonian or Einsteinian or quantum, and watch them fumble after they've tried to present a worldview that they don't truly understand. You don't need to present another one in terms of the issue with the definition of gravity isn't linked to flat Earth. You don't need to flat Earth it. You just show them that they're making statements that they're not even sure which gravity they're talking about.
Maybe if I take it away from the subject matter that we cover, if somebody has incorrectly identified a policy in the political arena and they describe the policy or bill or law incorrectly and you just sat next to them having a chit chat and you're not that politically inclined and you don't care, you just know that they're wrong, do you correct them?
Oh yes,
No,
I've done that, but I'll shut up now.
No, well then you're the one I want to hear. So you've got okay, great. Give us the setting and the scenario and why you felt obliged to do so.
Yes. So 2 years ago, pardon me, at a conservative nationwide in the U.S. Mike Lindell summit thing. It was televised and online everywhere, right? Streaming nonstop, 24 hours a day for the 3 or 4 days, of it that I was there. And I was involved in my local politics, doing outreach, also on my committee for my local chamber in a main urban area within Missouri. And then, so I was invited because I was already, working with, I guess, that team and Lindell's people and trying to clean up all the voter blah, 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 blah. So But yeah, he was citing Mike Lindell was just addressing the entire room, and there were senators and Congress people there. There were news, all sorts of news, authorities doing interviews the entire time, day in, day out. So there was a lot, and then just spectators, journalists, all sorts. So a lot of people that are influenced are going to be influenced by the people that are attending that setting. So I think it was Mike Lindell himself, but it could have been one of his IT people on stage with him, and both of them were discussing something, and it was citing a intelligence, the United States, national intelligence briefing, something or other from a whistleblower back in like the early 90s, right? And it was just so wrong. It was very wrong, and it just made him look like a dumbass a little bit. Well, pretty much the cause as to why we were there entirely, just because of a descriptive error in facts about the judicial process of that whistleblower case, right? So it was involving policies that we were discussing while we were there for cleaning up the voter rolls and potential policies that were already being worked on. So it could have affected a lot of things in that moment, and I was just, I was kind of helpless in that situation. But I did pull him aside like immediately after and got his, in like our eating space or whatever in between like presentations and stuff like that. But I was like, I didn't know what to say. I was so nervous, dude. But yeah, immediately started to perspire. But it was like, I'm new to this arena too. So what do? I can't just jump on stage with him, but I would have if I would have been more comfortable. It wasn't my first like national conservative conference in general. Like I would have definitely done that.
Gotcha. I mean, that is, I mean, it's obviously out and about in terms of it's in a real world setting where you're pressing the flesh with people. But comparatively, it's like us addressing the people who go out and make videos in the respect that he's making a public address. It's a brilliant example because it's completely comparative. And yes, like we all feel obliged to address your Blue Marble Sciences and your Dave McKeegan's and your Professor Dave Explains. When someone's making a public address in regards to their claims of heliocentrism, or in this case, a political issue, when you know something's wrong, you feel obliged to correct it. But I'm more talking in a general setting. Thank you for your example, by the way. In a general setting, if you're at the bus stop and you sat waiting to go to a paintball, whatever, you're doing something that's completely unrelated and it just happens to come up in discussion, or you bump into somebody that you haven't seen for years and it happens to come up in discussion, and you have actually got an appointment to get to. Do you correct them?
Most of the time.
This is not fair.
Why not?
Sometimes, okay. I see a little 3-year-old wearing a NASA T-shirt at the Walgreens pharmacy, right? Just routine things with mom, routine things where I go. And I think on the way out, I said something to the daughter, and because I was just small talking with the mom to whatever. But I saw the rocket T-shirt with NASA on the kid's shirt, and I'm like, I must plant seeds. So I think on the way out of the door, I think I said, question everything or something like that. It was
there you go. See,
Oh.
John, that's what I was fishing for. That's precisely what I was fishing for. Because while I'm saying obliged, what I'm actually fishing for is the feeling of being compelled to say something. That's what I'm actually fishing for. And yeah, I'm glad we got there, because otherwise John's about to be an interjection would have made perfect sense, because he said it wasn't unfair, but I'm going to ask him to elaborate. Thank you, Sydney. Go ahead, John.
Well, first of all, the comparison with religion, I don't think you can make that, because with religion, you're expected to be able to give a reasonable defense of your faith. That's expected whenever you're making a proclamation. So when you're stating it out loud, this is my belief, you need to be able to defend that.
Okay, fair enough.
The facts do not need defending. You don't have to know how to defend a fact.
Okay.
It's just a fact.
That is a very different slant that I hadn't considered. Carry on.
So when someone states something that's not factual, they're the ones in the positive position. You can correct them with a fact, and it not be. It may have religious implications for them, but that is not why you do it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's slightly nuanced, because you don't have to go out there and preach this. That's a decision that you'll make. if you want to be an evangelist or whatever. But knowing and claiming are two different things.
Right. Shout out to Jardo, who's just gifted 5 memberships. Picked up by Unselfish Thoughts, Noble Aspirations, Duncan McLeod, Enos, Rob Kine, and Dysfunctional Navigator. So welcome. Check out some of the members-only videos. Thank you for gifting those super chats, Jardo. Really appreciate the support. Okay, we do have a video to cover, unless there's anything else to talk about our obligations with regards to Flat Earth Evangelism. Anybody else want to make any last comments before I move on to the video that we'll be covering? Nope. Okay, then. I've already sound checked this, so let's rewind this right to the beginning. Is this guy pro-Flat Earth? Or is he neutral? What's the deal with this guy? I've forgotten who suggested this now.
I think it was Vlad, right?
I'm just scrolling up. Yeah, it was Vlad. He's just not around. I can't see him in the chat.
No, I'm around, bro. I just shared the vids, so it's Central Goat. I don't even know the names.
Oh, yes, it was Central Goat. We won't. Maybe we'll find out, because this is like always. We don't know what we're going to expect, but we will do the same YouTube stuff that we typically do. So go and let this guy know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. He maybe even be friendly. We didn't get any clarity in the pre-show when we did the sound check on this guy. And as always, we're doing it cold, so we'll just see what we get. Everyone ready? Good.
So if you were to ask the average person on the street whether the earth is round or flat, you would probably get some weird looks, and then the answer something along the lines of it's round. Obviously, everybody knows that. But if you were then to go on and ask them why they know that it's round or how they know that it's round and not flat, most people would just kind of stare at you for a minute and then say something along the lines of, I don't know, like we know that. We have pictures from space. Like,
Did I lose connection?
Oh, I was waffling on about him while I was on mute. My bad. So this channel is called Flat Earth. It's not the channel. Called discombobulated because I was on mute, and I'm now repeating myself. The video is called Flat Earth ? And the channel is called Read Like a Man. Now, I've already linked it once, but I'll do it again. Go and let him know. At Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. I might as well explain to this guy, as I explained to everybody, when we cover people in this May and send our audience to you, the idea is that if you were to make a response video, you would do the same for us and put a link to a Flat Earth debate video so people can find their way to us, because we don't receive any YouTube algorithmic love. So that is the general idea, that you would return the favour if you were to make a response video. We'll find out how friendly you are, because you may not like us after we've covered your video. We'll see. Anyway, the link's going by in the chat. Hopefully that's brought people who've seen the link going by in the live stream audience. How many people are watching? Enough time to actually go by. Almost 100 people watching. So yeah, hopefully a few people will go and check him out. Leave him a comment. Help this video in the algorithm.
Everybody knows it. This line of reasoning, or really lack of reasoning, is one of the reasons why Danny Faulkner wrote this book, Falling Flat, a refutation of flat Earth claims. Most people have no idea how they know that the Earth is round. They just think that they know it. This is a great example of a pervasive problem in modern culture with the idea of epistemology. This is the study of knowledge. Epistemology answers the question, how do we know what we know? And most of us have never thought about that. And for most of us, the things that we know.
Hey man, this video couldn't be a more appropriate video considering the discussion that we've had today, right? Right?
Agreed.
We know because someone told them to us and we just automatically accepted them, and we're like, I don't know, we know because we know. Do I really have to think about it? As far as Flat Earth was concerned, I really thought I didn't have to think about it.
I was much more concise in my summary in the pre-show. I said, yeah, people are stupid. That was how I summarised that, wasn't it? But this could not be more appropriate so far.
Until recently, when a friend came to me and told me...
Just for a bit more, just to expand on that a little bit for the live audience. So we're talking about how when John, sorry to talk about you in the third person, came to the subject of Flat Earth, he trolled us. That's Flat Earthers. collectively stereotype, all of us collectively. Every last flat earther who's out there trolling him, bastard. Anyway, he reached a point where he recognised that there is no measurement of an Earth that's spherical. There's no Earth curve measurement, and that's the basis of understanding that that is the case. Well, if you don't have that anymore, you don't have a measurement of Earth as a sphere anymore, you don't have Earth as a sphere anymore. Well, that was the conclusion that a right-minded logical man would come to upon realising that you have to relinquish your Earth curve measurement at the point of the black swan, so 1st of Jan 2020. Well, for refracted curvature, that's his logical, reasonable, intellectual stance after realising the awful truth. So we can't measure Earth as a sphere then. Now, upon discussing that, I said, well, yeah, most people won't do that. Yeah, most people are going to seek to affirm their already in existence belief, affirm their bias, and then get on with their day and squash anything that may take them away from that original belief. Whether or not they recognise it as a belief or not is irrelevant. That's what most people will do. Most people are lazy and stuck in their ways and stupid. Now, he's described it with epistemology, which is perfectly reasonable, just less concise than me saying that, yeah, a good chunk of people are stupid.
Some dear friends that she has who are flat earthers. I was like, what the heck? I didn't even know that was a thing anymore. Turns out, looking at the back of this book, we were up at the Creation Museum recently, and I saw this on the bookshelf. I picked it up, and on the back quote of it, it says, unfortunately, as flat earth websites proliferated on the internet, thousands of people soon joined the movement. It's ironic that more people in the West today may believe that the earth is flat than have in 2 millennia.
Yeah, Danny, standard practice Faulkner, claiming that we have a belief when we can demonstrate how it's measured. Flat. And your sphere belief came from that, Danny, by the way.
So, I was like, well, guess I'm going to have to read this book. So, I have read this book now, and I want to talk with you about 2 key points from it. This book is chock full of all kinds of sciencey stuff.
There is absolutely no science in that book whatsoever. I absolutely guarantee you. There's your first mistake, my friend. To say it's got sciencey stuff straight away sounds awful, but science is a very specific thing. It's a method of establishing cause and effect. It's the basis of physics, the study of the physical and natural world. We won't get into what science actually is, but it's pretty clear from what you've just said about the book containing lots of sciencey stuff. No, Danny Faulkner's a pseudoscientist. He himself was challenged by our very own quantum eraser to define a hypothesis, and he failed. He doesn't know what science is. So there's definitely none in his book. Does someone want to add something? Go ahead. No?
Dr. Faulkner literally goes...
Sorry, go ahead, John.
I would agree that it is a problem that people believe the Earth is flat, just as it is a problem that people believe it's a globe. This is not a topic of belief. The fact that people are believing anything about it is a problem.
Yeah, we shouldn't be all high and mighty about it moving into 2024 saying you should know it's measured flat. Because this is a kind of, it's not even that new now, it's sort of 4 or 5 months old in terms of discussion, maybe 6 months old. It feels like it's been around for a long time, us pointing out that this is not a belief, and our battle with those who express their beliefs after finding out Earth isn't a globe and not actually knowing that it's flat or being able to prove to an audience that it's flat to any high degree, or any degree in some instances. It's immediately revert to their beliefs about what the world is after the fact, one of them being flat. They can't actually demonstrate it or prove it in any way. But that is, as John says, just as big a problem, and we brace against that equally. Sometimes more than we do the globe, because the globe are reluctant to come in and have their ass handed to them by us, or be shown that their Earth that they think is spherical is actually measured flat. So yeah, we do brace against those beliefs as well, John. Good point.
Into everything about everything with all the diagrams and all.
That looked like a triangle with a flat baseline. Let's have a little look at that.
Full of all kinds of sciencey stuff. Dr. Faulkner literally goes into everything about everything.
Whoops, pressed the intro button by accident instead of the... Anyway, yeah, let's have a look. What's on this? Moon must be a sphere. And then we've got angles off a flat baseline. What's all this about? Okay, well, I'll study this page that he's held up to the camera at a later date, but it's there on screen for us to peruse later. But what that looks like to me is a couple of right-angle triangles next to each other. That's going to be a problem for a ball, regardless of what you're inferring about the moon with it.
Oh dear.
Thing with all the diagrams and all the math language and all the trigonometry and all the everything. And
this guy's average Joe, isn't he?
it is incredibly complex.
He's saying that
he sounds average.
He's pointed out that Danny.
Sorry, I'm talking through you. Go ahead, John.
I was just saying he's pointing out that Danny Faulkner is trying to apply trigonometry to the stars when they don't obey trigonometry. Yeah, that's provable that they're not trigonometric. They are not that.
No, they're not.
If you really want all the deepest answers to all of the arguments that people make, this is definitely the book to get. But most people are not going to want that. Most people don't need that. I want to give you two things to help your own thinking as to why you know the earth is round, but you can't explain it. So to start out with, what we have to talk about first is the actual understanding of what the flat earth cosmology is. So the easiest way to think about this is that flat earth is essentially a pizza pan. All around the edge of it is Antarctica. There's a dome over the top of it.
Why is he saying round and not spherical? That's number one. Number two, he's writing the Feast of Nonsense already. That does not represent flat earth.
Yeah, Danny's
he invoked the cosmology that we.
Sorry, John, go ahead.
He invoked the cosmology that we do not adhere to. Like, what's he talking about?
He's just put it in a false dichotomy where we've got a flat Earth that's been converted to a globe and then back out onto a flat map and then represented as a pizza pie floating in a sky vacuum with Antarctica around it. And then he's going to juxtapose that with a globe Earth that's come from the same exact Polaris-based flat Earth measurements in a false dichotomy. Because that's how it's been stacked up in Danny Faulkner's book. Danny's trying to appeal to the masses, isn't he? He's trying to sell his book. So he's going to take the mass representation of the Feast of Nonsense arguments when it comes to flat Earth, something that we've only just disclaimed we would brace against also, and said that this is the straw man stereotype fallacy that you need to know about because Danny's told me that's what flat Earth represents. He said, point one, understand your opponent. That's basically what he said. What is my opponent? Well, as I understand my opponent, they've got a pizza pie in a sky vacuum with a dome over it, and it's got an ice wall. So let's start challenging that then. That's how this is stacked up for him by Danny Faulkner. Shout out to Jardo, who says, if you're reviewing a guy taking 2 points from Danny's book, then we have sunk to a new low. I don't know, Jardo. I mean, I think we picked a pretty good video to cover. We're seeing how Average Joe responds to Average Joe's reaction, I should say, to a book about flat Earth represented by an anti-flat earther. This is very much on topic, I'd feel. But thank you for the super chat.
No, he sounds like a... Sorry.
I'll just thank him for the super chat. Thank you for the super chat, Jardo.
It sounds like to me like, Nathan, this guy, he wants his bias affirmed by Danny Faulkner, something we spoke about this morning as well. So anything Danny says, this guy's going to lap it up.
Yeah, that's what, like I said in the pre-show, that's what Danny is appealing to. He said it on the radio broadcast. You think you've got the answers, you come across this subject where you don't have the answers, well, you can come and get them from me. And here's how they all work. Here's how the flat earthers argument works. And that's how he understands it. He's got what he thinks flat earth is from our opponent. So it's obviously going to be distorted in the best possible way to assist the opponent to defeat it. So it's going to be riddled with straw man fallacies, and this is just the first. He doesn't know that. And to be perfectly honest, this guy seems really nice, right? Doesn't seem angry. But there we go. He's just read something that has achieved its ends. It's affirmed his bias by the looks of things. So he's getting on with his life. A pretty much polar opposite position, not polar opposite, direct comparison to what I was suggesting people do when they get to this show, realise it's measured flat, and then get on with their day. Well, that's the mindset that Danny Faulkner's appealing to with his book. For those of you who just want to get on with your day and know how this all breaks down because you happen to have come across it, I'll show you the questions being asked and I'll show you the answers that are globe related. Come and buy my book. Well, you know, I'm not saying come and buy my book, but come and watch my show so you can get on with your day knowing it's measured flat. How do these arguments actually break down? What is the actual physical evidence in the reality we incorporate into our worldview that we disseminate? Well, that's how the world that you actually inhabit works. How is it measured? Flat. How does the globe come to pass? By measuring a flat earth to infer it. Once you know those things, you can do the same as Danny's hoping to achieve from a ball believer. That you can just get on with your day, and then, in this case, he's so pleased with the fact that he, you know, managed to figure out all the arguments, he made a little video about it. Good for you, mate. Unless you come and watch this, because that'll be absolutely devastating when you find out that every radial value inferred to prove that you've got a sphere beneath your feet by Danny Faulkner came from a measurement of a flat earth. That would be devastating. I mean, I'm not suggesting that. Go and let him know we sent to you. Go ahead.
Also, the concept of the cosmology that he's proposing of a pizza pie and a sky vacuum, that necessitates a flat plane.
Yeah, and the pizza pie and a sky vacuum model is what gives you your globe model wrapped around the same exact flat plane. Horrifying. If you came here and heard that, I'd be devastated. If I was a globe believer and just had my bias affirmed by Danny Faulkner.
That dome has the stars attached to it. The moon and sun are inside the dome, but not attached to it. And they go around the Earth, acting kind of as a spotlight, and that's what makes the day and night. The sun is kind of a spotlight going around the circle of the Earth. So if you look at this picture here, this is kind of the best example of the most universally accepted flat Earth.
Yeah, Danny told him we universally accept that. Right. I don't know. I'm going to guess that there's at least 10 flat earthers between the Discord and G+ panels today. Hands up, who would say that they adhere to that model? Room full of flat earthers. Danny lied to you, mate. Yeah, he took the narrative that Google says. Yeah, he didn't go and assess and survey all the flat earthers in terms of what model they adhere to. He didn't do that. He comes on my show and keeps his mouth shut. Yeah, and we tell him that's not our model. He knows that. He's just a liar. But based on your acceptance of his nicely prepackaged lies about what the opponent says, we don't say that. Danny lied to you. Who on the panel would be the best to write the FED book? Thank you for the super chat, Michael Jones. Me, that's who. Anyway.
Earth model, okay? So the two things that I want you to be thinking about with this. The first is that it was 200 BC when we first measured the circumference of the Earth accurately.
With a flat plane? Let's see where he goes with this. We already know.
200 BC. Right. There was a guy named...
There's first misunderstanding. You calculated it, mate. Even if you're going to take that, you didn't measure the circumference. You measured some other things and then calculated from that a presupposed circumference. This is the trouble with reading what Danny tells you. It's not actually the truth. It's not an honest, truthful explanation of what's been done.
I don't know how to say this name. So Eratosthenes, I think.
Eratosthenes.
Oh my
and in 200
God.
BC, he accurately...
What, Neil? What?
Eratosthenes.
He didn't even get the name right?
Doesn't matter.
Hold on. Now, we've all been corrected on it.
He did say, I'm not sure. It's not like he was making out he knew it.
But I like this guy and I don't want him being bashed, right? This is just Joe Normal.
Oh,
right?
That's what I just said. That was normal. That's a normal man's... I just said I don't know how to say that. He didn't pretend he did, or there's no ego. He's an honest bloke. He just said, and that's what's knocking, because he's genuine. He's thinking that what Danny's presented him with him is unbiased information. So he's taking it as that. Danny, Joe Normie, because why would Danny be a lying misrepresenter?
And that summarised it beautifully. That's the point. Most normal people like this guy will take Danny at face value and assume he's trustworthy and honest in what he presents. So when he presents...
But then you're being lazy.
No, he's not being lazy. He's normal. Normal.
Nathan, I was normal too when it was presented to me, and I looked into it trying to prove the sphere. These people are just coming into it and buying a book by a supposed Christian, so therefore everything he says in there is true?
Yeah.
That's doing his own homework.
Yeah, that's what Danny has appealed to. That's the purpose of it. You don't have the answers. Well, you haven't got time to look for the answers, but you've got all these questions. Well, you hadn't found me. I've got the answers. Just buy my book. This guy paid for the book. Now he hasn't got to search through endless YouTube, what is it he said, websites to see why everybody's joined this nonsense. Danny will explain it for him in a nicely condensed book. Saved him the bother, didn't he? He's really pleased with himself. He's very calm. He's very happy. Knows the ins and outs, enough to go on camera. Look how chuffed he is. He feels like he's doing God's work. Good on you, mate. It's just a shame that Danny's been a dishonest prick and wrote a book that misrepresents everything that we say and doesn't acknowledge our proofs in any way, shape or form. Takes the feast of nonsense rhetoric from the controlled opposition straight from the first result on Google and says that is the majority view from flat earthers. No, it bloody isn't. Yeah, Danny's a liar.
Accurately measured the Earth's size. He did this by measuring shadows.
What's that you say? No, Danny's not a liar. He's gone out and surveyed all the flat earthers. Oh, really? I run a flat earth show and have done for 10 years. And I've got an entire panel full of flat earthers who I surveyed on the spot to ask if anybody took their model that Danny specifically said the majority of flat earthers would adhere to. Nobody put their hand up. Not one. Danny is a liar. So this man knows you've been deceived by Danny. Yeah?
Shadows and using trigonometry to figure out two different places.
Really? So what, triangles off a flat earth? You'll need a flat earth for them.
On the Earth that he knew. And
so it's flat then? Like triangles? Like this? Yeah? Right angle triangles. That requires Earth to be flat for a flat baseline. Flat Earth. Proven. So even in Danny's own rhetoric, he's telling you about triangles with flat baselines. Yeah, Danny's a liar. He's telling you this proves a sphere. Why isn't he telling you that he's measuring it flat? He's told you that it's a triangle, but being just Joe Normie, because he's told you this proves a sphere, your automatic assumption is that what, these flat triangles with flat baselines are measuring on curved surfaces? No, it's just you've been deceived by a liar. He told you this proved a curve, did he? Liar. He knows that. He's been on our show. I know he knows that. He's listened to me saying it like I'm telling you now. It's like if this guy actually comes along and listens to this show, you can't unhear what you have heard. These triangles require a flat baseline.
And then figured out the Earth's circumference from there.
Yeah, with Polaris, a flat line with an angle running from the minimum, which you call the equator, outside edge of a sphere for you. That measurement to give you that minimum was taken from a flat Earth. The angle with a flat baseline to Polaris from the equator. That's how Earth's measured. Flat. Now, Danny's telling you it proves a sphere, isn't he? It isn't.
One of the things that's important about this was in 200 BC, and
they're measuring it flat.
He did it based off of the knowledge and the assumption that the Earth was spherical.
How did he get an angle from a curved surface? He didn't. Now, Danny's told you that he's done these angle measurements off flat baselines because of an assumption that it's spherical. Really? Like this? Yeah, Dave McKeegan, who's a bonehead, did the same thing. You don't get angles from curves, like Dave shows you in his diagrams. You need flat baselines for angles, my friend. Now, Danny says, well, when we get flat baseline triangles, we can say the curved surface is what... No. Doesn't work. He just says it's measuring a sphere, But you being Joe Norman, you haven't seen the disconnect between flat baselines of triangles with right angles that go up perpendicular to one another? That's the flat earth prerequisite, my friend. Jamie, you're dealing with a liar.
Why did he already believe that in 200 BC? Well, one of the reasons why...
He wouldn't have needed to believe anything if he was measuring it flat. He measures it flat, which is what he did, according to this rhetoric.
And this is the first one that I want you to keep in mind, is that when we are at a body of water and we're watching a ship disappear, what we always see is that the ship disappears hull first, right? We would think if the Earth was flat, it would just get smaller and smaller until I couldn't see it anymore. But if we sit at a body of water and we watch a ship disappear, it disappears hull first, and the last thing to go is the mast and the sails.
It's almost like you're suggesting that there's a physical geometric sphere edge hill called Earth curve getting in the way of the boat here, mate. 2020. Yeah? Danny Faulkner's been a long time in this discussion and is well aware of the black swan. In fact, he even discussed it with someone else recently on one of the live podcasts that we reviewed. So Danny's well aware that you and your claim to be physical hill getting in the way of boats was debunked in 2020 by the black swan. If the Earth was a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, as measured on a flat plane, then every distance to horizon could be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet as laid down in your maths that asserts there's a hill in the way. Distance to horizon in the black swan is beyond the physical limitations of a sphere Earth horizon getting in the way at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. Therefore, Earth is not a sphere. The horizon was debunked as Earth curve in 2020. But what? A liar still leaning on it? Danny the liar?
Hold on. Sorry, what he did was he took the other videos and he showed how there was other white swans, you know?
They were black swans, though. The ones he showed that he claimed
He doesn't know that.
That would still be irrelevant, because what you actually have as a calculator is something that is giving you a differential plane resolution loss, and that your difference in your level above surface level is making things seem to disappear where the lowest angle or the minimum angle begins, which will be up towards the deck.
What John's pointing out, for the benefit of specifically this person we're covering, right? He seems like a reasonable guy. In your Earth curve maths that has the assertion that hills get in the way when you've got a very limited angle to the horizon, is that there's a geometric sphere edge below surface level. So the way the maths actually functions is by giving you the differential from the surface level when you take eye level, which is parallel to surface level. Well, you can extrapolate out a point below surface level called Earth curve that you can infer when you ignore angular limitations. That's perspective. You said, well, you'd expect the boat to get smaller and smaller. Not in your maths. In Earth curve maths, the boat stays 100 feet, 50 feet, however tall the boat is. It doesn't change at any distance in Earth curve maths. They remove all aspects of perspective. So while you say, well, on a flat Earth, you'd expect it to get smaller and smaller, what the angle would reduce. Yeah, that's the effect that they've hijacked to create Earth curve maths. And the way they're excluded perspective is by giving you an orthographic view of the world where you see the side of your own head and the target simultaneously. And then you can ascribe an actual size to the target, boat in this instance. And you can say that a 50-foot boat has got 5 feet missing. It's like, well, 5 feet is 5 feet at all distances. If the 50-foot boat is 1,000,000 miles away in that particular depiction, you can still draw one straight line between you and the boat and say you've got a line of sight to it. Because that's how Earth curve maths works. As things do recede into the limitation of the angle against the deck, that's perspective, therefore hull first, it's asserted that a hill gets in the way by ignoring all aspects of perspective, but claiming that the effects of perspective when doing a calculation of resolution loss by utilisation of the flat surface level and the differential from eye level parallel with it, as depicted in Earth curve maths. It's very easy to see. Just go to a calculation with a depiction visually of how the maths is functioning. It's got it labelled as surface level. It's flat. That's what you require to measure to give you an optical resolution loss calculation, to infer there's a sphere edge debunked by the black swan below the flat surface level that you're actually measuring. And then, in the mathematics, infer that the item you are claiming is being pushed behind a sphere edge below the surface level is never going to change with distance. If you're stood next to a 6-foot boat, it's going to be 6-foot boat when you're a foot away from it or a million miles away from it in earth curve maths, so that you can call the effect of resolution loss earth curve. That's how it works. But in reality, it's only an earth curve calculator in the title. In reality, it's an optical resolution loss calculation. And the point of optical resolution loss is inferred to be below surface level when you insert a geometric sphere edge based on a radial value that's also been measured off a flat plane. We discussed that earlier. Minimum elevation angle measurements to Polaris give you the radial value to infer Earth is a sphere, to put it in orbital motion with Kepler and Huygens, giving you the values. Anyway, Earth's measured flat for every single assumption that is used in Danny Faulkner's assumptions that we have what in his book got a geometric sphere edge capable of measurement and blocking boats and buildings. Not since 2020. We're all told it's refracted. Danny's well aware of it. Debunking the claim that we've got measurements of a geometric sphere edge. We haven't. We've got measurements of a flat Earth to infer it.
And anybody sitting on a body of water and looking can see that with their own eyes. The ancients saw that and realized that can't happen if the Earth is flat. That can only happen if there is a sphere, and as the thing is going away, it's going down below my line of sight.
He's even showing us in an orthographic representation. Below my line of sight, what, finger on the right? Earth curve and target, finger on the left. No, you don't see the side of your own head when you make observations, but that's how Earth curve maths is depicted. Undoubtedly got a diagrammatical example in Danny Faulkner's book. So after watching it, seeing it, looking at it and reading about it, he literally visually depicts it in front of the camera in orthographic view. He's got him on the left and the target on the right, represented by his fingers, as he describes it.
Sight across this sphere, right?
Across this sphere that you're looking at in an orthographic manner? Yeah, that's how the maths works when it hijacks perspective and utilises a flat surface level to claim that there's that sphere edge that you think blocks boats and buildings. Yeah, you're not up to date with the flat Earth debate. Danny is, though, the liar. He knows. When he wrote that book, he knew.
So that's one of the biggest things and the simplest things, which is why in 200 BC, we had an understanding that the Earth couldn't be flat and had to be spherical. Now,
no, they measured it flat then too, even in your own example.
As a quick aside, one of the things that flat earthers will continually bring up against this is
stereotyping fallacy. Let's see what Danny told him all flat earthers actually believe, and we'll see if we agree.
Different points where people have had experiences where they've seen beyond the curve of the Earth.
So Danny's representation of us as flat earthers is that we as flat earthers would say we see further than the ball would allow. So as a flat earther, I'm telling you that my sight isn't being impaired by a sphere edge. No. You see, I have an example when people strawman us with this garbage, where I have two men standing on a pier looking at an island across the other side of a body of water, and it's about 15 miles away. And one guy squints and goes, you know what, I can see a clock. It's the clock, the one at the library in the town over the way. There it is, I can see it, the clock. And the guy next to him squints and goes, oh yeah, I can see that clock too. But it's not actually the clock. What you're seeing here is a mirage. It's a slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena holographic projection of the clock from behind the now refracted geometric physical sphere edge horizon we know as Earth curve that's blocking our view of the clock. And then, through extreme refraction, it's being lifted up to above the physical geometric sphere edge that should be blocking our view but isn't. Therefore, we're seeing too far as a result of refraction, says the globe Earth believer. Flat Earther, standing next to him, who originally pointed out the clock, turns to him and says, I just see a clock. So the Flat Earther looks at a clock and says clock. You say, that's the globe Earth numpty, that the clock's not really a clock, it's not really there, we're seeing too far, there should be an Earth curve in the way. But Danny says that's what most flat earthers would agree about. No, seeing too far would infer that there's an Earth curve that should be in the way. That sounds very much like a globe claim. But if you reposition it carefully enough like Danny has, it almost sounds like you've got a pre-packaged argument to overcome that automatically assumes your spherical belief and inference that we should have something blocking our view. And what do you know? It's that Earth curve you were just talking about when we measured Earth flat in your example. No, we don't say you see too far. In fact, we'd jump on somebody if they said it as a flat earther. No, too far means you've already got a cemented idea that there should be a limitation based on Earth curve maths. No, we don't say that here. But Danny said we do, and he spends plenty of time around us, so he knows better, and therefore is a liar. You were just deceived by the man who wrote the book. That's not what we think. You think you see too far when your Earth curve edge isn't blocking your view. I just see a clock and go clock, because there's no explanation required for the evidence of my own bloody eyes. You need to say that there's an explanation required when you just see something. Because Earth curve should be in the way, we're seeing too far. No explanation is required unless you're a globe-believing numpty like the author of the book who tells you that's what flat earthers think. It's a liar. That's what liars do. Misrepresent their opponents. And not only misrepresent them with an insertion of their own fundy belief into the claim that the opponent doesn't make. See too far? My arse. Now just see stuff. You've got to explain why it's not got Earth curve in the way, therefore too far, not me.
He talks extensively about that in this book, being due to inverse...
Extensively talks about seeing too far with respect to a sphere edge that isn't blocking your view like you said it would. Yeah, it sounds like an apology for a problem in the globe model to me. Definitely not something I would say.
Mirages, where the air temperature that normally makes a mirage, where the image appears upside down.
Oh, I see. Not really a clock that I can see with my own eyes. Not really there, says Danny. Sounds like he's overcoming his own problems in his own sphere Earth belief that isn't blocking stuff in the distance. There's no hill getting in the way, but that's okay. It's a mirage. It's not really there. Slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena holographic projection of what we're seeing too far, says Danny. Nah, mate, you should have asked me. I know. Unlike the liar Dan who just claims to know. No, he'll insert his own sphere Earth belief into his claims of what we say. That's just a clock, mate. It's just the Chicago skyline, mate. You see it. Can you see it? You got a set of eyeballs? Yeah, you're just seeing it. What's that? It shouldn't be there. No, it is there. What's your problem? You got mental issues? No, it shouldn't be there. Quick, I'll show you how the math says it shouldn't be there. Yeah, and your failure of a belief falls apart before your very eyes. You'll create things that you can see with your own eyes and tell me that they're not really there. They're just a mirage.
Down is inverted, so the image appears right side up, and so it looks like you're seeing the whole thing.
Also what, John?
Also, all the atmospheric effects that Andrew Thomas Young appeals to require a flat plane of reference. So what he's actually saying is we see too far for the optical resolution loss calculator over a flat plane to explain. So we apply these refractive indexes over a flat plane to explain why we can see further over the flat plane. That's what the information is showing us.
Yeah.
But that's not what they're saying.
So what Andrew Thomas Young, the guy we're talking to again, I'll appeal to him as though we're talking to him as an individual. We're talking about where Danny Faulkner's got this notion that you've got a mirage. You're not really seeing a clock across the way. You're not really seeing Chicago. Yeah, that's come from a guy called Andrew Thomas Young, who claims that you've got refracted horizons and 7/6R extended geometry. That's to say you increase the sphere that you originally derived from a flat Earth measurement, ballsing up every map and model everywhere, always. But nevertheless, once you refract your geometry, number one, it doesn't work with anything in terms of physical navigation and building. But it also means that you haven't got a measurement of Earth anymore, and anything that's blocked by boats and buildings isn't really being blocked by anything, because everything's always refracted. So you're not asserting Earth curve gets in the way of that boat that you gave as an example anymore, because everything's always refracted, including the horizon, according to Andrew Thomas Young. In reality, in mathematics of orthographic view, where objects don't change their physical size because you're giving actual size rather than apparent size, angular size, boat stays 6 foot at all distances. What you do to bring the boat that isn't really there according to your maths of physical geometry is blow the ball up a bit. Make the ball a bit bigger, so you got a bit of a less of a hill in the way, And you do it at a rate of an R value that's been derived from a physical measurement on Earth of Polaris. So 7/6 of the radius is what terrestrial, that's Earth-based, nonsensical, side view refraction actually is, works by blowing up the ball a bit. It's got nothing to do with how light behaves, and is purely in the mathematics to justify and apologise for why things that you see in the distance that shouldn't really be there because there's supposed to be a hill in the way, you can see. What's that you say, flat earther? What would you say? What would the majority of flat earthers say, according to Danny Faulkner? We just see it. I literally don't need to give any explanation. When I look at something in front of me, I don't suddenly feel the need to justify why it's there, or why it shouldn't really be there and I'm seeing too far when I just look at it. You do, though. Of course, I'm still harping on about this because it's been given to this man as though it's some position that I take as a flat earther. It's an absolute disgrace. It's just an outright lie by Danny Faulkner, but there we go. Might as well expose every lie that this man's been exposed to.
When really you're not. You're seeing a mirage of the thing. It's just inverted, and so it looks straight up and down as opposed to how it would normally look on a mirage.
Like a Chicago skyline that just looks like the Chicago skyline's inverted. No, it's just the Chicago skyline.
But that's the first thing that I want you to remember.
Up and down with respect to a horizontal plane of reference, and the horizon, which is horizontal. You'll need flat earths for all these descriptions.
Yes, sir.
When we watch a ship disappear, it goes down below the horizon.
What, the refracted horizon? You've just told us it's all refracted, so what is it going behind the refraction now? You seem to be very confused after reading Danny's book, because according to you, you've now got to take into account the effects of refraction, in reality 7/6 of a radius in standard form when talking about Earth-based, terrestrial-based, orthographic-based refraction, which just inflates the size of the ball that you've taken from measurements of a flat Earth. But you're now saying boats go over the refracted horizon? No, you're saying it's just going over Earth curve still. You don't seem to understand the flaw in your argument now that you've introduced refraction to it. Yeah, that's because Danny just made it seem like it was an overcome to the problem, rather than an undoing of the measurements that you would need to get the geometry to infer that you've got Earth as a sphere when actually measuring a flat plane.
Hull first, and that was something way back when that was assumed and understood in 200 BC when we correctly measured the Earth's circumference.
And you're going to go back in your time machine to correct him and tell him it was actually going over refraction the whole time?
For the first time. The second piece that I want you...
Sorry, what was there an edit there? You understand now that there's now a contradiction in your example. First it's boats going over Earth curve. Now it's refraction. So boats not going over Earth curve then. Refraction. So where'd you get the geometry measurements for an Earth that's a sphere? Because the original claim is debunked by the refraction claim. Furthermore, the actual measurements presented by your book, when you put it up to the screen, were angles that were only possible if measurements were taken from a flat plane. So this is a total fail. But you thought that was your first and greatest point. Total fail.
To understand about this is if we go back to this model.
The one that none of us accept that's come from the first search in Google by Danny?
In the flat Earth model, the North...
Really?
North Star is directly at the top of the dome here.
No. In a North Pole-centric system that we use for navigation, that would be the same system that gave you the radial value for a sphere Earth, by the way, a flat Earth measurement to Polaris. It's called the Latitude grid.
Right? And there is no southern hemisphere. There is no north and south hemisphere.
Yeah, there is. Celestial sphere. What's he babbling about? What, you mean in this straw man representation, there's only one flat plane with one representation of a North Pole-centric section of an overall capable of being described as a sphere, celestial sphere model? Yeah, it's got two flat Earths. One is antipodal from the other in the model. Neither is representative of what we actually experience. There is no dome. We've got a parallel sky with a parallel ground that gives you a perspective representation through a protractor that you can depict as being dome-like above you when you take the measurements of the angles from the horizon to your zenith to the other horizon. That can be represented visually as a dome. A hemispherical dome, I might add. If you do the same thing after travelling south and find the point where you've got a inferred polar centralized point for the stars in the south to move around, you can then do the exact same thing and model it out with a perspective view from that centralized point and then describe the entirety of both systems antipodally. That is to say, you sandwich one model separate from the other underneath the first and then wrap both perspective views of the stars on top of one another. An absolute bastardization of reality, but offers up a model called the celestial sphere. That's what it actually is. Two flat Earth models antipodal from one another. But because Danny showed you what Google said, what a load of garbage. What were you going to say, John?
Yeah, he's using the words above a lot and below. Those are with respect to a horizontal plane as well, not a sphere.
Yeah, up and down, above and below. These are all flat Earth prerequisites, none of which is capable of being depicted or measured or inferred from spherical surfaces. They don't give you these concepts.
Hemisphere, it's just a pizza planet, right? So we have the North Star up here. And flat earthers will not deny the existence of the North Star or its location. We can figure that all out. But
What did you get that from Danny's book? Wow, what a revelation. They won't deny the North Star. It's intrinsic to measurements and navigation off a flat Earth. It's also intrinsic to how your globe was developed. You take those concentric circles as they move out from Polaris and wrap them on a spherical surface. But each and every one is an area of equal elevation, an angle measurement off a flat baseline to Polaris, right out to its minimum at the equator. That means there's a flat Earth running between you and a 90-degree point below Polaris at its minimum. That's a flat Earth. That's what you use to develop the globe, by the way, a flat Earth measurement of Polaris.
what I want you to think about is that if this cosmology was true...
No, the cosmology of the Polaris-centric system that utilizes latitude lines, that's what we use in mapping, and it's flat. Measured flat, it's angles off a flat baseline. But what if the straw man Danny gave you? Yeah, this is why it becomes embarrassing for you, the normie, when you believe liars. I mean, this is how the whole problem manifests itself throughout history, with people like Danny propping it up. I mean, in this instance, there is very specifically a motivation financially to do so by Danny, appealing to those who can't be bothered to go out and research it and watch endless flat Earth videos. You can have the whole pre-packaged argument that's a straw man from Danny about what we say when we don't and how he overcomes it. But it's embarrassing when you actually put your garbage argument that you're regurgitating from Danny the liar in front of an actual flat earther like me. Because I point out that no, the actual system that's used in mapping is flat. The Polaris system that's measured it to give you a globe is also flat, and it isn't this.
Then, no matter where you go...
Go and look up the celestial sphere model.
Inside of this dome, you should be able to see the North Star. Right?
Right? What about using the latitude-based Polaris-centric system that's on every map? How about that? That's used quite practically always for navigation and that. Matthew Eastman says, 33 months Illuminati confirmed. I'm very suspect. Matthew Eastman's been a member for 33 months. Not at all suspect. Thank you so much for your prolonged support. Yeah, John.
So we got a flat Earth model of a celestial sphere where we apply mathematics incorrectly and create a globe. And then we have a flat Earth model of a dome in a sky vacuum. Well, both of these arguments necessitate a flat Earth, so we all agree Earth is flat then, sir.
Yep, that's basically what it boils down to. Your globe model came from angle measurements to Polaris, therefore it has a flat Earth genesis. This garbage straw man is a flat Earth. I mean, if we'd have just accepted it, obviously this would fail miserably. And you'd claim that the Polaris-centric system that's measured with angles off a flat plane was actually proving the globe. Because Danny told you. Price of Adam. Again, super chatting. Is it the start of the month or something? Free super chats to the members going out or something. I just wanted to see how many months I had. 26 months for you, Price of Adam. Thank you for the support. Prolonged support, I should say. 123 people watching. I'm going to do a quick call to action. So if you're not subscribed, smash that subscribe button. If you're enjoying the video, there's a button right below it that's specifically for that. It's called like. Smash it. And if you haven't done so already, please share the show. Hopefully we can get up to 150 people watching. That would be lovely. 122 currently watching live. Let's crack on.
There's nowhere that you go in here that the North Star should be hidden from you because it's directly at the top of the dome. And if you're inside a snow globe, you can always see the very tip top of the snow globe because that's how it works because you're on a flat surface.
Right, I see. It's almost like you've got a prepackaged straw man that's really easy to undo. That's the thing about straw men.
Okay? That is verifiably not how the world that we live in works. If you
Therefore globe. Wow, Danny's done a really good job.
Go to what we would consider to be the southern hemisphere, you cannot see the North Star. Okay, so that's another one of the things that I want you to think about. And then the third and final thing that I want you to think about is that.
So what, at the point that an angle measurement to Polaris reaches and breaches its minimums, that's telling me that when we measure an angle to Polaris, eventually we can't see it anymore. Yeah, okay, but the actual purpose of that and the use of that is that we can measure it with angles and draw out circles that we call latitude. Yeah, off a flat plane. How does this in any way prove sphericity, I ask? I'm sure in Danny's book, when he constantly led you with and therefore sphere, and therefore sphere, and therefore sphere, it seemed like it proved a sphere, but telling me about the minimum angles to Polaris, that doesn't prove a sphere. It proves it's flat.
That in this cosmology, the sun acts as a spotlight. And
oh, really? Says Danny's straw man that nobody here would adhere to. Here we go. Let's definitely be easy. I mean, it's almost like Danny's completely ignored the non-stop rendition of us asking on a daily basis for the distance to the sun. But it's at a fixed distance and like a spotlight in this straw man. Yeah, Danny's a liar. He knows full well that we do not claim this. And we ask him, when he's been on the panel and been asked, verbally by me, have you got any distance evidence for the sun? We were met with silence from Danny. Now, Danny might take that into a show at a later date and say, just because I didn't answer doesn't mean I couldn't answer, and then he'll go on to not answer. Because if he does, and he uses any heliocentric rhetoric, he'll be using R values derived from minimum Polaris measurements, like we've just gone through, to infer that you've got distances to your heliocentric sun, through Kepler and Huygens, scale and measurement based on assumption of R. With Venus, yeah, we know the rhetoric. So does Danny. He's heard us asking daily for distance to the sun measurements, which you don't have. You've only got flat Earth angles to Polaris. That's where your globe came from. Of course, Danny's not telling you that, is he? No, it's not going to help you in your quest for confirmation bias. Shout out to Unitox Femu, member for 41 months. Inside that dome, there is the Suez Canal, Bolivian Salt Lake, Holland, Florida, a few oceans, a bunch of seas, thousands of lakes. Now why the fog is white. I think he's saying, yeah, you point out a load of flat Earth prerequisites or flat Earth measurements, and you're asked why fog is white as a complete non sequitur. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it, Sasha.
Hold on, before you start playing again. So that explains it to me. That's why Danny comes in here and doesn't say a word. Because then he wouldn't be able to write this book. Because this is recorded. He knows what we say here. So by staying silent, he never has to say the things that we say here. Because he doesn't refute anything that we talk about. Talks about stuff. He refutes stuff from David Scheiss, from Jiren, and whoever else he spoke to. But when Nathan Thompson asked him a question, he didn't give him an answer. Real slick, Danny.
It doesn't mean he can't give the answer, and I suggest that he should spend at least 20 minutes explaining that inference that not giving an answer means you can't give an answer is worthy of discussion for a very prolonged period. And if you do discuss how not giving an answer isn't necessarily inferring that you haven't got one, would be easily enough waffle to put the distance between the not giving of the answer that you didn't give in the first place, and then move on to a different subject. That's a very, very good way to dodge the original question and make it seem like you do have an answer. He did very well in that regard too, like all excellent liars.
And it goes around the surface of the Earth, and that's what makes the day and night, because it is just acting as a spotlight and only lighting up certain portions of the Earth, right?
Says the straw man that Danny gave you.
And this makes sense. Like, we know a spotlight does exist, and we know it could do that.
Quick, get him some matches. You can burn that straw man really easily. It goes up really nicely. It's like it's just designed to be ignited, isn't it? It's amazing.
The part that I want you to think about is that in order for...
What I want you to think about is the fact that the measurement of the distance to the sun in the heliocentric model was derived from a minimum elevation angle measurement to Polaris to give you a radial value, Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion that puts Earth as a sphere moving around the sun with a scale, and Huygens' assumption that Venus, a light in the sky, has the same flat Earth measured spherical R value inferred onto it. So you can get distance to sun. That's where your 93 million miles comes from. It has its origins in a flat Earth measurement of Polaris. That's where you get your distance. What's that? Where do I place the sun? I don't. Don't need to. I'm not making any positive claims about it. That's why this straw man's built up by people like Danny when they lie about us. Because you have a claim of a distance to the sun that you require Earth be measured flat to get.
For a spotlight to function, the cone coming out of the light has to be constricted. So a floodlight has a very wide cone of light. A spotlight has a very concentrated cone of light. So in order for something to act as a spotlight, the light has to be concentrated out of it.
Sorry, he's busy burning his straw man. Go ahead.
He's about to talk about the angle of incident of light and how.
Oh, yeah, I didn't spot it. John is so freaking ace. Go ahead.
Yeah, son, you need a flat Earth to describe both straw men, or your belief and this straw man both require a flat plane of reference to form the shadows and the angles that you would get from them. What are you on about? Is this really the best Danny's give you?
We'll just give John a round of applause for that. That was absolutely brilliant. You're going to need a flat Earth for this. I just love it when you spot one that I don't. That is so brilliant. Yeah, the angle that the light's going to come in, what, with respect to a horizontal plane of reference? You're going to need a flat Earth to burn this. It didn't go up quite as nicely as I thought. I was wrong, and I love being wrong in these ways. Yeah, it seems like John just pissed on the matches. You need a flat Earth for those matches. That was brilliant. I'm going to trim that out. That was so great.
I don't know anything in this book that he talks about, and I'm not aware of any kind of flat Earth theory about the sun being anything other than a giant ball of flame in the sky.
No, that's your claim. You aren't aware of any other flat Earth theory other than the gaseous second law of thermodynamics violation ball that doesn't disperse into an area of volume. You think every flat earther has your same belief. It's amazing. It's almost like Dan stacked up all of the problems with a globe and made it out like they're flat earthers' claims. It's amazing. And then they're so easy to burn until someone comes and urinates on the matches.
That's terrible. We ask daily. We say we don't know what the sun is. When we ask for distance, a lot of times I'll say, do we even know what the sun is?
No, you like all flat earthers, according to Danny, would say it's a burning ball of gas in a sky vacuum, wouldn't you, Neil?
Yeah, but then
yeah, you're supposed to say no.
Then it's a violation.
You're supposed to say no. You're obviously not paying attention to what I actually say.
And so, if you think about that, then the light source of a giant ball of flame that's on fire.
What? Burning ball of gas in a sky vacuum? You know, my understanding of gas, well, I say understanding, it's a fact, it's a law of nature, is that it disperses into an area of volume. What's that? You say we've got a burning ball of gas not dispersing into an area of volume? That's a straight up second law of thermodynamics violation that you've got there as a belief. I'm pretty sure, nay certain, that Danny's aware of the second law of thermodynamics violation that he's laid down in his book to give you pain relief. Acutely aware. Yeah. Yeah, but obviously selective reasoning by a liar. Yeah, he's more than willing to give you the second law of thermodynamics violation description of a burning ball of gas in a sky vacuum. Why wouldn't he? You're just a normie. You're not going to check anything he says, are you?
Because it's a ball of flame, is 360 degrees. It's the widest angle that it can be. There's nothing constricting it. So,
widest angle? What, with respect to a horizontal plane? You'll need a flat earth for this straw man.
Even though it's theoretically possible that you could have a spot.
Go ahead.
No, he was talking about the angle of incident from the center point of the light. In that instance, he's talking about from the sun.
Oh, okay.
So that one wouldn't require a flat.
No, fair enough.
Spotlight that only lights up a portion of the thing. In order for that to happen, something has to constrict the beam. So either the sun has to be entirely different than what we think of it as, just a giant
or flat earthers think it's got a lampshade
and ball of flame, or something has to be constricting all of that light. The other piece that I want you to think about with this, I'm not sure if I'll be able to show this very well, but the closer a light source is to the thing that it's lighting, the closer the diameter of the light matches the actual source. And the further back it gets, the bigger the light goes, because light comes out in a beam that starts either at a tiny angle or a big angle, but either way, as the angle continues, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So if this was to be the case, that the sun was going to be acting as a spotlight on the Earth, when you factor in that even in the flat Earth cosmology, the sun is only 3,000 miles away, the sun...
Oh, I'm sorry this straw man's taking so long.
There's the problem.
Go on.
There's a problem whenever he brings the Earth into it and talking about angles, because you will require a flat Earth for that. Whenever you try to bring those angles to the Earth, yeah, it's going to require a flat plane.
Sun is 100 times bigger than the Earth, and it's 3,000 miles away. And so the amount of condensing of that light source that would have to happen to make the sun only light up a tiny portion of the Earth all throughout the day is exponential, and it would make the sun appear as a just barely microscopic thing in the sky and not a giant ball of flame that we can see now that's so bright that you can't even look at it with your bare
Giant ball of flame? Ugh.
eyes. Okay, so those are three really quick things that I just wanted to...
What he's done is shown...
Go, John, go.
Oh, what I was going to say is basically what he's showing is that the sun is not obeying geometry. Doesn't mean the Earth's not. The celestials are not.
To touch on. If you're interested in really understanding all the arguments and how basically every argument that flat earthers make actually is really an argument for a spherical Earth when you understand and apply.
Oh, what? So you're now telling the audience that when you understand the straw man lies of Danny, you'll appreciate that they're basically just globers asking globe arguments. Is that so? No. Let me give you a big fat slap round the face with a wet fish. I am a flat earther, and we tell our audience how Earth is measured flat. And when people like you come before us, we show you how your globe came from those measurements. That's what we do. But it's surprising that after reading Danny's book, you think that, flat earthers are just seeing too far. Seeing further than the ball should allow them to see. It's almost like they've already got a globe getting in the way and need to appreciate why it isn't. It's almost like these flat earthers are making our own arguments from the globe side for us. Shocking how well Danny's repositioned your own arguments to make them seem like they're flat earthers' arguments that just apologise for how the globe fails multiple times for Danny. Yeah, that's not the case.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was about to point that out, that we don't make arguments. We're not making an argument. We're making a statement of fact, not an argument.
And what Danny's doing is making apologetics for where the globe fails and repositioning those apologetics for where the globe fails as though they're flat earthers' arguments. No, it's a statement of fact. Earth's measured flat. That's how it's dealt with. If it wasn't, you wouldn't have a globe to infer and reify into belief that you have. You need those flat earth measurements. You guys need a flat earth more than we do.
The science to it properly.
The science, that load of old garbage that you just rattled off, you think is science? I think we covered this.
But the biggest point that I wanted to take from this whole book is, and I want to read this full quote out loud, because at the end of it, what he said really stuck out to me, especially as someone who runs a booktube channel and is encouraging people to read constantly. And what he said was, as I pointed out in chapter 1, unlike the 19th century flat earth movement, the modern flat earth movement has spawned relatively few books. Rather, the preferred medium for disseminating flat earth information appears to be YouTube videos. I think that is because many flat earthers don't read much. Perhaps many flat earthers...
I see. So it's like almost like this entire poisoning the well paragraph is about how dumb flat earthers are. Reaffirming your bias that we're just stupid and can't read.
Don't read much because they find reading boring. And why do some people find reading boring? People who find reading boring generally don't.
Ed?
Just in that strange statement he's made, there's also the point that YouTube didn't exist in the 1800s when the flat earth movement was going.
Yeah. I mean, Danny can make these outrageous stereotypes about flat earthers. I can make very specific statements about Danny being a disingenuous liar because of the information that's been put before him. I can make that assertion about Danny as an individual and how you got duped by him. Yeah? Leaving you with the impression that all flat earthers are stupid because they get bored easily. They've all got ADHD. What's this? Page 1? Oh, no, this is boring. No, definitely not. This is an outrageous stereotyping fallacy and a poisoning the well fallacy. But you think it's the best paragraph you've underlined it? Underline. Most flat earthers can't read, get bored easy.
Hardcover book.
Yeah, I mean, Danny's putting out hardbacks. Go on, sorry. We're all talking over each other one at a time.
My point was that, a little flippant, that he's attacking the simple fact that we've got a methodology of disseminating data very rapidly called YouTube. Yeah, that the only media to disseminate data back then was books. You had to publish a book to get your message out there. Yeah. Well, people have other options today. There's no need to go to all the cost and effort of publishing books. But that doesn't seem to be his argument. His argument means to be decrying the simple fact that we have a rapid medium to disseminate information means we're all thick. So we're using YouTube to disseminate information, not looking at the information, just critiquing the media that the information's disseminated through. Weak.
Third appeal to format.
Don't comprehend much of what they are reading. People who lack reading comprehension are just a small step above functional illiteracy. And then he talks.
So, yeah, basically, we're stupid. Really, says the man who didn't recognise the non-adherence of a methodology that's been established for a very long period of time called science. You thought this was sciencey. Sciencey? Should we look that word up? Because obviously we're the illiterate ones. But obviously all of Danny's proofsies are sciencey, aren't they, mate? But you thought it was worthy of underlining how stupid it is, because it affirmed your bias that you're smarter than us all. Because you've read the sciencey book that Danny wrote. Oh, yeah. Yeah, do you feel more scientifically literate now, having read the sciencey book that Danny gave you?
Talks about whenever he posts articles coming against Flat Earth, or specifically a book or an article that he did called Flat Earth in the Bible. He said, when people did respond, the most common comment was a request to put what I had done in a video. This happened repeatedly, and it puzzled me for a while. I finally concluded that the people asking for videos simply couldn't follow what I had written. That's a pity, because I've concluded that people who can't read with comprehension probably aren't very good at reasoning either, because I think that reading comprehension and reasoning ability probably go hand in hand. No one.
So the two things that you paragraphed out of the book were the two things that attack people's comprehension level by stereotype. Wow, you saw value in this, did you? You didn't recognise the poisoning the well and stereotype fallacy. Perhaps it's your lack of comprehension. Maybe if you read a book on fallacies, then you'd recognise a few of them. Me as a flat earther, I feel oh so very righteous and educated for telling you that you have no idea how to recognise fallacies. Perhaps you've never read a book on one.
Wonder these people have fallen for what I recognize.
Maybe he needs it.
Go ahead. John, then Adam.
I was just saying the appeal to format. He just laid that fallacy out perfectly, because the format that they're using is YouTube, therefore they can't read, therefore they're idiots.
Although it's completely non sequitur, there's a good chance that the majority of the videos that I, in quotes, watch, I don't actually watch, because I'm normally in a lesson with one of my daughters, and you can't disturb the lesson by having a video blasting out. So what I tend to do is put the subtitles on and read the entire video. Just thought I'd drop that in there.
As such poor arguments for flat Earth. It's not that these people are stupid, it's just that they've never acquired proper reasoning skills along.
It's not that they're stupid, they're just stupid. Not having reasoning skills. Reasoning? What would we, as flat earthers or otherwise, categorize the inability to recognize fallacy in that description? Would we all agree that a lack of comprehension could be described as an inability to identify fallacies? Would we all agree?
Yeah, I think somebody needs to make this guy a video on fallacies so he'll be able to comprehend fallacies, because clearly reading it out of a book, he's not grasped it yet, has he?
Yeah. Maybe Danny read the book on fallacies and then saw it as an educational tool for him to deceive people like you, who he obviously knows isn't going to read a book on fallacies. Right? And we are being told to you as dumb as all hell. We've not even read books, all we can cope with is videos. Right? We're dumb. Yeah, so much so that you thought it was worthy of highlighting 3 different paragraphs on the matter.
with reading comprehension. Now, this book came out in 2019. What fascinated me was a couple years later, Reader Come Home by Marianne Wolf came out, and this book is a just deep dive into the science of learning and reading and how reading is the only provable thing that we can actually show that develops critical analysis, reflection, and empathy.
3 edits in that sentence. I mean, mate, I'm doing this live. Now, don't get me wrong, I occasionally stutter over a few words or stammer or I've got a mouthful of foam or whatever or forget to take a breath. But I'm doing this live. This is a pre-recorded video and you failed to make that entire sentence in one go. You needed 3 edits in it. And yet you're highlighting sentences. Hang on a minute. I see what's going on here. You're not the sharpest tool in the box. And you want others to be stupider than you. That's what's really going on, isn't it? Look, me who can't string a sentence together and needs to edit in 3 splices to make the sentence make sense. These people are dumb. Look, Danny said so. I've highlighted it because I couldn't read in that. This is such brilliant. I had no idea how Danny's pain relief had been organised into a format. But obviously a very effective tool. Look how happy this guy is. He's got all the answers where he didn't have any. Go on, whoever that was, Adam.
No, not Mike.
No? Oh, it's QE joining. Hello, QE. Wow.
Hello.
Very warm welcome to you.
This book confirms his gut feeling of, it just seems like people who can't read well don't...
Let's point out something else. He just said that the science of reading.
really think that well. This is what Marianne talks about in this book. You cannot think well if you don't practice by learning to read well and having focused time delving into someone's arguments. So
that's basically science, like you said.
Just really hit me with this whole idea that learning to read well is the single best thing you can do for yourself in life. I love
science.
What John Lovell, the Warrior Poet Society guy, says, that reading is the thing that protects us from the...
I think you should edit you saying the same thing in 2 or 3 times. I mean, I watch a fair amount of videos on how to make videos. And one of the things that they say is, get rid of that shit. Edit it out. You only need to say it once. If you're repeating yourself over and over again, edit that out, not edit it in.
Terrors of ignorance and deceit. I love that. So pick up this book if you haven't. I have a full video about this book that you can read. I'll link that up here somewhere.
I don't know about that book. Maybe it's good, other than a misidentification of science, but people often try and steal the valor of science if they're trying to punt a book where they're teaching something that can't be called science, in this case reading. Yeah, stolen valor. If you hear the word science and translate it into science-y, then you're going to think that it's there's some validity to the book. It's got a valid point. It's been proven. It's science, right? The science of reading, therefore proven. That's the only reason that whoever wrote that book is stealing valor from the empirical methodology that is science. Same reason Danny's stealing valor from it. So he can sound like he's proving things. Because you think it's sciencey.
Go
on, Neil.
I want to know why QE did not tell us about the science of reading. Are you holding back on us, Quan Marisa?
Yes.
I also have a full video on John Lovell's book somewhere. If you haven't seen that video, go check that out. I love that book, The Warrior Poet Way. And yeah, if you are interested in falling flat, all of these books, I'll link all of them down below. They are going to be affiliate links that will help this channel if you buy them from there. But if you want this, you want to really dig into all the flat earth stuff and why it's all wrong and doesn't make any sense, definitely pick.
So if you want to dig into flat earth, go read a book by a Glober. Yeah, that makes total sense. Okay, well, while I'm not going to promote Danny's book necessarily, I will promote you, my friend. So appreciate the effort. I'm glad you put a video together. I'm glad you're not tarnished by the reality of the argument that actually exists beyond the straw men that Danny set up for you to easily set ablaze. You know, fair enough. I don't hold anything against you in that regard. But what we'll do is send my audience to you. And should you make a response, having heard the actual flat earth side of the argument, not by stereotype or strawman fallacy presented by our opponent, then maybe if you were to make a response, you'd put a link to my video. But in the meantime, you've got a relatively small channel. Hopefully I can help you in the algorithmic love by sending a few of my audience to you. There's 113 people currently watching live. Hopefully a few of them will click on that link. leave you a nice message, polite, no swearing, that says at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. And we're, as I say, you to make a response. Hopefully you do the same for me and put a link in your comments or in your information box so that people can find their way back to Flat Earth debate. Any further comments? Because I'm pretty sure that's the end of his video. Yes, Nathan. We all thought he was a really nice guy, just poisoned by a liar. Yeah, well, that's exactly the impression I got. I'm glad you said it. It was a nice segue for me to add what I was going to add at the end. Thank you, whoever that was.
Poisoned by himself.
Go on, Neil.
He's poisoned by himself. He wanted that. That's his bias affirmed. That's what he asked for. That's what he got.
I don't think people view it like that. If you wanted to fix a car, you've got yourself a Chevy Camaro and you've got a problem with it and you want to fix it yourself, you go to the library and you buy a Haynes manual on the Chevy Camaro for the year, model and make and type that you've got, if it has a subcategory, or it might just be a generic manual for all models. You go and buy it and you think, this is the book on that subject. Well, this guy's gone, Flat Earth. What? Well, what sources can I find out? So he goes to Book on Flat Earth, Falling Flat, or whatever Danny Faulkner's called his book. And then you read it and go, okay, this is the guide to that subject. Like I'd read a guide to the car. And it all makes sense. They think that when they measure angles off a flat Earth, that they're actually measuring a flat Earth, when they don't realise that 2,000 years ago, them measuring a flat Earth means that they've got a sphere beneath their feet. People just didn't realise that. That's how he's read his way through the book. Well, does that make him a bad person? Or, you know, people do naturally seek out confirmation bias, whether they realise they're doing it or not. It's a very normie trait. In fact, you've got to fight against that trait, if you ask me. Most people have got to brace against it to kind of encourage themselves to think outside the box, question everything. We had it from Sydney earlier when she's like, saw someone in a NASA top and she wants to whisper, question everything. You know what I mean? You've got to kind of gear yourself to do that rather than slip into the cogs of cognitive affirmation. So I don't have anything against this guy. I've got to be honest. I don't see him as a Danny Faulkner. I don't see him as an anti-flat earther. I just see him as a book reviewer who happens to have found his way across the subject. He's the perfect demographic for Danny's book, and he's given his honest review. I don't know. I literally have no ill will whatsoever to this guy.
I would like to say that what he did was he found a subject and he followed the competency hierarchy that we have built our world on in the West, which is supposed to be based on truth, and he went to that authority to get his answers, which is Danny Faulkner. I can't fault him for that.
Exactly. I can't either.
It's Danny's fault that he's wrong.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's Danny's fault because Danny's wrong. And Danny's heard us. He's listened in. He knows the information he's given is false, but he's given it anyway.
Yeah, and that's not this guy's fault. And were this guy next week to look at a book on Bigfoot, something that we have no knowledge of here on Flat Earth Debate, I'm sure that there would be big people who watched that video that went, no, you just don't understand. But the difference is when they offered up their critique of his misrepresentation of what people say about Bigfoot, it wouldn't involve any actual usable in the real world proof that has a practical application like navigation, or show how their misapprehensions about how Bigfoot doesn't exist actually proves he does. Like we do when we show your belief in a sphere actually comes from proof and measurements of a flat earth. So it's not comparable, but at the same token, if he was to look at Bigfoot, I'm sure there would be plenty of Bigfoot followers that would have something to say about it. Yeah? And he wouldn't be trying to misrepresent it if he just happened to read a book on debunking Bigfoot. It's just he's a book reviewer, isn't he? Yeah? From what I gather, from what he was saying, he's a book reviewer. So this is just a book to review. He's not, from the sounds of things, got no real vested interest beyond an intrigue about the subject. He just strikes me as the perfect guy to review, that you can say, okay, what's a normie in this subject? John Le Bon asked me about all the categorizations that I would give to the people in this subject, and you've got globers, anti-flat earthers, us, where we stand against basically everyone, but no, it's measured flat. Well, he sits in the very normal globe believer category. And when a normal globe believer stumbles into this subject, for him, he's like, well, how can I have an angle to do what I do, which is review books? Or is it obviously, as a smaller YouTuber, maybe he's just started doing it. Maybe I can turn my love of books into a YouTube channel. What's interesting? What's a current subject? Oh, flat earth, I'll look at that. He's not gone into it going, the bastards think it's flat, I will destroy them all. You know.
So Danny knows his target audience, like Huey says, and he got it.
Yeah,
There's your target audience, Danny.
Yeah. And good on you. I mean, we were quite harsh with this guy, and we were over the top. We tend to be that way to make our points. If you happen to be watching this back, the Doo runs this channel, Read Like a Man. No, we don't actually think you're stupid when we're saying things overtly, and it may seem that way because we're actually saying it. We don't really mean it. We're talking about the concepts that are being disseminated to you as a normal human being. There's no reason that you would have to assess the validity of right-angled triangles when you're being told that they prove a sphere. It's not expected that you should know the ins and outs of logical consistency as a normal person in normal society. That is not expected of you. So for me to call you stupid as a result is just making a point. It's not actually inferring that you are in any way below average intelligence. I don't think you are. I just think you're a normal dude. So I've got no ill will. I want to reiterate that. It's the first time ever, I think, that someone's actually opposed us that I've gone, I can't fault this guy. Nothing wrong with anything you've said other than the points that you've regurgitated from Danny with his book in your hand. So I can lay every bit of blame at Danny. You're reviewing his book. Not often that you get this, because it's normally the case that I have to say, no, if you're regurgitating this becomes your argument, mate. No, he's not. He's disseminating what Danny says in his book as he reviews it. So this is a privileged moment for me.
No, you're supposed to hear two sides of the matter. Talking about flat and globe, there's two sides to the matter.
Oh, sorry, Neil.
Go ahead, Neil, then Edinburgh.
You did say earlier, Nathan, that your daughter was in the other room listening to you and, learning about the flat earth and that kind of thing. Do you think she'll emulate your approach, or do you have to kind of filter out all the bad words that you use so that she doesn't use those with her teacher?
Why are you
go about that?
asking?
Piss off, you weasel.
Exactly.
Things. Piss off. Somebody in Discord ban him for bringing people's kids up in topic. It's not relevant.
No, Nathan spoke about his daughter openly.
Go away. Nobody wants to talk to you. You piece of turd. Look at what you've just done. Go away. Come back another day when you've learned civil behaviour and what isn't scumbaggery tactics. You dirty weasel. Go away. Can somebody ban him in Discord for bringing up somebody's children? It's a perfectly good reason for banning. Neil, just give me... Yeah? Is Discord listening? Pick him out.
I don't know. If Hope, one of the mods, is paying attention to you, whether or not they'll do what you say, I don't have any control over Discord. Did you heed Adam's cries?
But not with this guy, I'm sorry. You got to draw the line and get his ass out.
You don't bring people's children up unless you're a piece of human detritus, which he's demonstrating he is. He's not fit to be here.
Yeah, me incorporating what is a real-world example that I can't example unless I mention why I'd be in a position to, for example, not be able to listen to my phone when watching a video. Why? Well, because I'm at a kids' class. Ah, he brought his kids into it. Excellent.
No. Very different. Very different.
Yeah, that's the kind of crap we deal with from Edinburgh, though. People keep telling me in the comments that they're sick of him. It's a repeating theme from the people who leave comments on the live streams. That's it. I'm done with Edinburgh. I can't stand the guy. Why do you keep talking to him? He's only got his agenda and scumbaggery, and that's it. He's one-trick pony.
Yeah, but when his level of intelligence is so low that he thinks he can use that without repercussion, now that's when he needs dealing with. You have to put up with him just being a standard retard all the time. But when his behavior descends that low, then unfortunately, there's consequence. I don't want to be in a room with somebody that's going to use those kind of tactics, possibly bring my kids into it. Yeah, not acceptable behavior.
Exactly my point.
Also my fault. If I'm going to use an example with my kids in it, I should recognise.
No, you didn't, Nathan.
Okay,
you
did any of us say anything?
You brought a situation where you're learning information. Yeah. Your kids weren't in it. You weren't using your children as an example.
I was. I used the example of when gravity's discussed in a lesson and how proud I was of my daughter for not being argumentative and paying attention to what the lesson had to involve. That's very much an example that involves me and my education and my kid within this subject matter.
Yeah.
So that was an angle that was open wide enough for him to step into. But he was doing so well until he started saying, are you going to overcome the fact that she can hear you occasionally swearing in a different room? That's
no longer talking about education, talking about your parenting skills.
Exactly.
That's the point, that it's no longer acceptable.
Yes, agreed. And that's where he overstood the line. But he had a wide enough angle to step into, and he did. And I would have tolerated it until it's like, what are you going to do about them hearing you swearing? Yeah, people swear. What do you want? Do you want to discuss that? We've just spent 2 hours discussing how Danny Faulkner's poisoning people with strawman fallacies that we don't have as our argument, because that's what Google says flat earthers say. But what's that? My kids occasionally hear me swear. Yeah, they do.
Adam, I wanted a piece of them, Adam.
Morning, guys.
Anything to discredit me? It's not about the arguments anymore, is it? Well done, Bear. High five. You made it all about me. Well done. Job's a good one.
That's what I was about to say. Nathan swears in front of his kids, therefore the earth's not flat.
Exactly. Yeah, appealing to the feeble-minded in the audience, right? Yeah, well, unfortunately, there's going to be a fair amount of them in some audiences. Unfortunately, in this audience, they've got a very high level of discernment, and most of them just hate Bear as a result of the things he does. Well, there we go. Kudos to you, my audience. You don't represent the majority of the Western world. It's very, very refined, actually. The audience here is so refined. You know what I mean? But as a byproduct of being cut out of the masses' view in YouTube algorithmic terms, it means that what we do get as an audience, as the audience grows, is a highly refined audience. Yeah? Now, I normally translate this across to the audience with a financial benefit that I get from it. In other words, when I need to e-beg for something that's broken, I'll go, oh, wow, look at how motivated and focused the audience is, and that's why they're so willing to help me financially and support me in this endeavour that we undertake here. Well, that also translates into things like the comment section. You can tell that there's a really focused audience, and the vast majority of them are intelligent.
Go on a live show.
Say again.
Go on a live show.
Yeah, we're still live. Why, did you want to plug something?
Yeah, tomorrow. I just don't know what time I'm going to do it.
Well, that's all right. Just say tomorrow.
Yeah, it's tomorrow, probably in the later afternoon or evening. It's going to be a treatment of guess who? Dr. Danny Faulkner, the doofus dipshit astronomer. Sorry about that. Astronomer. He's going to give up the ghost. He's going to finally answer the dilemma of Joshua 10.
Remind me, I'm not a Bible scholar. What's Joshua 10?
No way.
Yeah,
you serious?
I got him. Joshua 10.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah, Joshua 10. What he did was Joshua commanded the sun to stand still. Danny's going to finally answer that dilemma, and he's going to get asked for scientific evidence for his spinning ball space monkey.
A lot of coverage of Danny Faulkner at the moment. He's going down in infamy, isn't he?
Yeah, it's gonna be catastrophic.
Yeah, it's not going to end well for him.
So be here or be sphere on the Quantum Eraser YouTube channel. Today being Wednesday, that'll be Thursday. We don't know the exact time, but check it out. I'm sure you'll see an advertised time once we've got an idea. But yeah, be here or be sphere on the Quantum Eraser YouTube channel. With that, though, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!